Well, this is week 5. Welcome here to Cultivating a Peaceful Home. We have one more week after this one. Tonight we're going to be talking about a home that is respectful. Respect is a huge part of an ingredient that makes up a peaceful home. So some of you today may be thinking, well, you definitely need this in your home. Others of you might be thinking, I don't need this right now, but you will tomorrow. So we all need to work on the respect in our home, from what we communicate, the way we communicate with our spouse, the way our children communicate with each other, the way our children treat us, and of course, the way we treat everyone, people outside of our home as well. Tonight we're going to cover the first 2 parts of this. We're going to talk about how we treat our spouse, and we're going to also talk about how we treat our children. Because I can't tell you how important the awareness is that we provoke our children to wrath. Some of the rebellious things that they feel, that they go through, we need to take a good look at ourselves and think, am I playing any part of the hurt that is being demonstrated in my child's actions? Now, they own what they do. Do you hear me? They own it. But are we playing a part contributing to them, to the feelings that they have and the disrespect that is shown? And we have to get a hold of that. There's no place for disrespect in our homes. It will happen. It will happen, but we need to make it a priority to deal with it. Okay, so let's get started on this. This session, like I mentioned, is focusing on the respect. So I'm going to give you a bunch of verses, and you can look these up and study them. It'd be really a great thing to study this week to understand it more. And if you're doing devotions with your children, within your family, these are good verses to go over to mentor your children, not to be in their face, but to express to them how important this is in God's Word, which means this is what we are to live by and what we are to obey. So, Psalms 133:1. Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. You know how I've told you I've put a lot of scripture to music? I wish my kids were all here to sing with me. But Valerie, it's just me right now. You want to sing with me? Behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. It's like a precious oil. Okay, I'll stop there. That's Psalms 133:1. That's a verse to live by, isn't it? When in your home, it's good and pleasant when everyone dwells in unity. 1 Thessalonians 5:1. Encourage one another and build each other up. Encourage one another and build each other up. Hebrews 10:24. Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good works. Your children being mean to each other, their focus is on themselves. Put off selfishness. That verse tells us to put on in its place what? Let me say it again. Let us consider how we may spur on one another toward love and good works. Instead of being, what can they give to me? What can they do for me? How can I build up the other? So one is self-focused, put that off. Put on being others-focused. Ephesians 4:3. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit. I wish I wrote neater. Through the bond of peace. It's just like, as much as it is within you, be at peace with all men. So when your children are arguing and they say, she did it, you can help them understand what God's Word says. It's different than the world's way of teaching and our natural inclination. It's thinking more along the lines of what can you do to have unity, to have peace. How can you be a peacemaker? Not how can you get what you want. What can you do to die to self? Much different approach, right? When you're consistently teaching the approach of God's word, you're working on the hearts of your children and ourselves. Acts 24:16, so I strive always to keep my conscience clear before God and man. It's another important one. Philippians 2:4-8, look not to your own interest, but also to the interests of others. Your attitude should be the same of that of Jesus Christ, who took on the nature of a what? Servant. He humbled himself. That's what we are to do, and that's what we're to teach our kids too. It's not about them. Humble yourself. Serve your little brother. Serve your big sister. And you're telling them privately. You teach them in devotions to the whole family. But privately, when there's a disagreement, you remind them by gently being on their level, looking at their eyes as a mentor. The number one mentor in their life. We have that privilege. Get on their level and say, you have an opportunity to serve. What does your sister like to do? Or what is difficult for your brother? How can you help him? How can you lighten his load? So you're shaping the way your children see their family members and view the world. Ephesians 4:12, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not quickly broken. Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in doing this, you will fulfill the law of Christ. Aren't those good verses? We could just stop right there. Thank you for listening. We're done. This concludes that's enough work to keep us busy for a lifetime, right? All right. So, let's talk about respecting our spouse. This is not easy. It is sometimes, but it is not always easy. Is that correct? Okay. Now, I wanted to see if I can find this quote. Is it here? This is from the book Love and Respect. Women should understand and use the word respect because, in truth, respect is a man's deepest value. One of men's greatest hurts is to feel inadequate and disrespected. Have you ever played a role in disrespecting your spouse? I know some of you are not married. I know some of you are going to think that you've never disrespected your spouse. Is that true? We all have. We all have. And it's very hurtful. But no matter where you are in your relationship, there's always room to start anew and to change damage that's been done. So let's say that you're aware right now of something, like something specific has come to your mind of how you've hurt your husband. Okay, you thinking of anything? Maybe ugly words, maybe even the way you got out of the house tonight. It happens, right? Then what we want to do as being respectful is we want to apologize. Make that be part of the natural thing that happens in your family. And you remember how a couple weeks ago I talked with you about the way to apologize is I know I was wrong. Again, you don't have to do it like that. But in placing ownership on your part of hurt is important. So humbling yourself and coming to your husband and saying, I know that the way I left you and yelled at you as I was going out the door was rude and disrespectful. I just wanted to ask you to forgive me for that. And recognize you're a work in progress. And we will be forever. So make that apology be part of every day or every time that God prompts your heart and shows you something a way that you've hurt someone. But the marriage is the most important relationship in our children's lives. This is what they see modeled. This is what brings a feeling of safety to them. It's very, very important that we honor this relationship. The stability, security, and role modeling is important. It provides a lot for them. Ephesians 5:28, in this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. Ephesians 5:33, however, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So these are verses right in the Bible. Now, guess what? These are verses for the husband to respect the wife, but they're not here tonight, are they? So we're going to talk about our role in honoring and respecting them. The way to fully love a husband is to respect him in the ways that are meaningful to him. And respect does something to the soul of a man. God made him that way. So this should be a primary goal for us. And when we mess up, quickly apologize. So let's think about specific ways that we can honor him. And one of them, we talked about this last week, is the 5 Love Languages. That's a great book. How many of you have never heard of that book? 5 Love Languages. Okay, you all have. Well, then I'm talking to Facebook Live right now. There's 5 ways that Dr. Gary Chapman says that we can show love to another person. There's physical touch, acts of service, quality time, gifts, and did I say service? Words of affirmation. Did I say all 5? Okay. And I want to give you an example. When I read that book, it was eye-opening for me because I realized my husband and I are different. I knew that already, but I didn't realize some of the things I was very frustrated by were things that were part of his natural, the way that God made him, the natural makeup. And things that were irritating to me were part of how God had designed me. I just didn't understand how they should work together. So when I read that book, I realized my husband's things that fill his love tank, is what the terminology of the book uses, are physical affection and acts of service. So when I understood that about him, then I needed to change the way that I showed love to him by noticing, he'd say, "Can someone rub my back?" "Well, I don't feel like it." Wait, that's really important to him, very important to him. I should probably hop on that. Y'all have never been rude. Thank you. I only have one person in here that understands that. Now, we know who in your family has that they like their backs rubbed, their shoulders. So anyway, that became important that I noticed that about how he's created. So I also taught the kids, hey, Dad's coming home, like he would love his feet to be rubbed, stuff like that. Like, give Dad a hug, everybody. Okay? So when I knew that about him, I wanted to then teach the whole family to give to their father in that way. Okay, the acts of service means, this is my husband. He's a hard worker. When he finishes his day at work and he comes home, he just naturally washes the dishes, throws a load of clothes in. He just helps. He helps prepare for this tonight. He helps set up chairs. He just helps. He's a server and he sees needs and he does it. Not everyone sees the world like that. That's easy for him. Well, that also means most likely he would enjoy his love tank being filled the same way, like the dishes being done and this and that, washing his car. Not that we do all those things great or anything, but it's a way that would mean a lot to him for me to show extra attention and respect to him, okay? But what I discovered about myself, I'm not either of those. I like quality time and words of affirmation. I wanted him to give to me in those ways, like, tell me how wonderful I am. If you could be very specific, it would be extra nice. Well, that didn't even cross his mind. He doesn't think like that. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Like, you like that? Okay. And if you could put it in writing, please, that would be helpful. Here are my qualities if you need a little help. And then quality time is really important to me. So look, out of the 5 things, I have 2, he has 2, and neither of us really are good at gift giving. How's that for our kids for Christmas? Oh, gifts? Supposed to do that? Okay. So anyway, you want to take the time to study your husband. Study him. Watch how he gives to you. Watch how he does for other people. The way that he's giving to other people probably shows the way he would most like to be loved. Now, not all the time, but oftentimes that's a good indicator of what's important to him. And not that you want to remove, like in my case, I'm no longer saying nice things to him because that's not your love language. And I'm not going to go on a vacation because quality time is not your thing. No, that's not what that means. We really want to be gifted in all 5 categories. We want to work on that. We are not as good at some of these as others, but we want to pay close attention to how can I love my husband? And then teach that as part of the tone in your home of your children. Like, Dad loves this. That means a lot to Dad when you do that. Wash his car for him. You take that trash out before he asks you to do it. Do nice things for your dad. Okay? And then teach them what yours are. It's okay. Okay, kids, I want you just to know. For Mother's Day, I really want a card. And I don't want just your signature on it. Go ahead and be specific with me. That means a lot to me. Like, go ahead and tell them what's important to you. Not in a demanding way, okay? But truly, they need to know what's important and how you operate because you're teaching your kids to study you. Don't you want boys who will grow up to love their wife and understand the insecurities of their wife, the positive things about their wife, ways to come alongside and love their wife? That's what we have the opportunity to do, is raise our kids to notice these kinds of things. So that's something I wanted to throw out there as a starting point, is know your husband. If you can hear that noise on there, that is our ice maker every week. Sorry about that. It is not somebody playing marbles in the background. Y'all don't even know what marbles is. Okay, you're too young. Okay. Another thing that we can do is be teachable. You know, there's times when our husbands say things to us that maybe we get offended and we pout and we think, you know what, you got a lot of nerve telling me that. Some of you look like you have had recent experience with this. Do not turn that camera on anyone in this room right now. But what was I saying? I made a joke and forgot where I was. Oh, y'all are good. So we want to be teachable because our husband should be somebody who can speak truth into our life. And even if it comes out in a way that's unkind or we feel very hurt by it, let's do this. Let's recognize the important role he has, that he should be able to help us see blind spots that other people feel and see and think, but don't dare tell us. And let's let that role be that, where they can help us to say, you know, sometimes you can be a little obnoxious at parties. Or you speak over people when they talk. And we think, and we get mad. And what we are doing is we're saying, I don't want you to tell me anything I ever do wrong. And is that really the way best friends should be? Now, we might wish they could change the way they tell us. And that could be part of a conversation you have with them. But let's at least establish tonight that they can reveal things to us that would really help us. And the same could be true, but our delivery to them should be kind and gentle and spoken at the right time, right? What's that verse? A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. Did I get that right? Look that up. Okay. So we come to the marriage with different ways of being raised, different ways of running a house, different ways of communicating, different ways of handling being irritated or anger. And these are things we have to work out. First of all, we want God to change us, don't we? Lifelong. Just part of our walk with Christ is, Lord, continue to shape me, change me, reveal things to me that don't line up with your word. Soften me, chisel me. One of the best books that I've read that has mentored me is Elizabeth George's book, A Woman After God's Own Heart. There's also one for young girls, high school girls, middle school girls. It's called A Young Woman After God's Own Heart. And I just taught 11th graders, girls at the school that last year, that this one, A Woman After God's Own Heart, is really an amazing book, because that's the cry of my heart. I want to be mentored. And that's why I'm teaching these, is because of the mentoring that has taken place and continues to in my own heart. And I just want to pass it on to you all. So those were great books, very helpful to me. There's one right here. He also has them for teenagers, for children. He's got a series on them. Excellent book by Gary Chapman. Okay. So being teachable is a precious quality. And that's when you are that way, it spills over into the dynamics of your family, because you want your children to be teachable, right? But when they see you say something, like Dad pointed out to me that I can be harsh with you kids. When you say something that simple, you are demonstrating to them a life skill of, Dad pointed out something to me, like I received what he said, and I saw the value and the truth in it, and I am working on change. That's the way to talk in your family. Not, Dad told me. Does anybody else think that? Dad tells me I'm rude. Am I? Do y'all think I'm rude? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Exactly. What you are demonstrating through that is nobody messes with mama, and which sometimes may be good. No, we're just kidding. No, but you see what I'm saying? Like, we need to be teachable. God tells us to be teachable. And so think about that role with your husband. Think about things that are important to him. Our house should be a welcoming home. Now, not everyone stays at home. Not all ladies want to or have the privilege to of being at home throughout the day. Okay, some want to work, enjoy working outside the home. Others have to work outside the home for various reasons. No matter what, ask this of God. What can I do for the tone of the home in making it a place that's a little piece of heaven for our husband, for my husband, for our family? What can I do? It might be that you have dinner on the way. If you're both working, it may even be your husband gets home for you and he may be willing to share those responsibilities. All of our family dynamics are going to vary in this room. But I know when I had lots of little ones, my husband liked, I'm not saying this was fair to me, okay? But he liked for the toys to be cleaned up. And that really, I didn't like that. That pushed my buttons because he had a lot of nerve. He didn't know that I'd cleaned it 40 times. Do you understand what I'm saying? But then before he came home, they were out again, and he thought I didn't do anything. Let me tell you, he's grown a lot, and I've grown a lot. Okay, but this was real, and some of you might be there right now. But what I learned is, what can I do? What can I do to help him to understand communication better? It was certainly not to say ugly things and be rude to him in front of the kids about it. It was to talk to him privately about that kind of situation. But what I've told my kids was this is a change I made. Instead of this, hurry up, Dad's coming home. Put all the toys away. And that kind of tone, I began to say, John, could you text me this many minutes when you're leaving work or when you enter the neighborhood or whatever, could you just call me, let me know you're here, and then that'll be good. And so I would then, in thinking how we could honor their dad, how I could honor my husband, I would say, hey, your dad's going to be home in 5 minutes. Let's clean up and make it nice for him. See the difference? Do you see the difference? I did not do that face with them. I did that face with you all. Do you see the difference? One shows a way to honor their dad. I'm not saying that's important in your home, but in ours, it meant a lot to him. And you see the difference in the way I handled it, y'all? Okay? And that was very helpful in my journey of maturing and journey of realizing two different people come to a marriage with different expectations and different ways and that. Do y'all remember any of your first arguments? Oh, y'all never had any? Okay, well, I'll tell you one of mine. It was so dumb, as they usually are. We were married in college. We were at the University of Florida, and we went grocery shopping together, and he wanted one kind of peanut butter, and I wanted the other. Well, both families think it's a sin if it's the wrong kind. You know what I mean? Do I really remember? That's what I'm saying. It's so dumb.
Remember that?
That's what I'm saying. I remember it because I think God allowed me to remember it because he's like, I'm going to show you how much progress you make. You're going to have a peanut butter example. And yeah, it's so silly. But that's just a little silly example of how you have to work things out, and you should be able to just talk about it. Okay, you can have the kind of peanut butter you want. It's fine. Okay, thank you for listening. No, I don't remember everything, but I remember the peanut butter. Okay, so let's keep going here. Your husband should be the first one you go to with your excitement and with your greatest concerns. Not your girlfriends, not calling on the phone to them, but waiting to share it with your husband to place him in the position of the very best friend. Teach your kids and simply be this, that dad has the final decision. Okay, I think marriages are, you should be able to talk about decisions that you're making, but as a wife, God has shared with us in his word that we should submit that final thing. I think we should be included in discussions, but he should be able to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we fall in line with that. And there's great protection and great feeling treasured. So don't fight that. Be a part of the discussion and then let it rest and let God do his work in your spouse for any consequences of a decision that is made. But you should be able to speak into the situation. Do y'all get that? All right. Okay, something that has helped us, if I see my kids being rude to my husband, or he sees them being rude to me, we want to take a good look at ourselves first and think, did they learn that from me? Did they learn that attitude, the way that they're talking, from me? If so, then we would want to change. We want to apologize. And of course I have an example of that because I have done that. Our oldest son was probably in middle school, and I remember standing right there in the kitchen, and he back-talked his dad about something. And I went, I believe that sounded like my tone, is what I thought. I did not say that, but I went like this to him, and I said, come here. And my son, we went in another room, and I said, I want to apologize to you. You were so rude to your father, very disrespectful, but I saw me in the way that you just talked to him. So I want you to know I am going to change. I'm going to be intentional to work on that. But I want you to also. And you need to go and apologize to your father, because whether he was right or not, you may not talk to him that way. And I shouldn't either. And so we came up with this little code, he and I. I said, what if we do a little code to help us hold each other accountable? Now, you can't do that with your kids if your kids don't know how to be respectful, right? Raise your kids about the tone in your home and how to communicate with people, all right? Then you can do this kind of thing where I said, let's be accountable to each other. If you see me treating, or let's be real, when you see me do that again, let's do this. It's a very significant code. It's very difficult. Everybody do it with me. And that will be our private code. And listen, ladies, if you do something like that, that means we have to be teachable. If our child does that to us and we go, he was rude to me. Well, you've just told him I'm not really teachable, right? And I don't mean, my word is not honorable either. Okay? So, he went in there and he apologized to his dad and everything. And it wasn't very many days later, I was talking with my husband, standing in the kitchen also, and this is what I beheld in the background. And I said, I had to process it because I really wanted to say, do you really see what's going on? But I said, I nodded that I saw him because my husband was not aware of the code. And I said, nodded that I saw him, and I said, John, to my husband, my son's John also, but to my husband I said, John, the way I was talking to you was disrespectful. Will you forgive me? Don't we want to be like that in our homes? Quick to notice when we are rude, disrespectful. Do any of you need this today? You may choose your own code.
Did it mean anything to your son?
Yes, I mean, we laughed about it. But we've done things like that. I'm going to share something else that happened tonight, too. Not related to that, but another big thing that happened. But it's ongoing. It wasn't like super monumental because it's a journey together with your family. So it's just one component of many things over years of ways God has changed me. And am I still disrespectful from time to time? Yes. But I want my heart to be more sensitive to the second I am. Usually I know it before it comes out of my mouth. You do too, right? You're like, I know I shouldn't, but there's going to be consequences, but so, okay. Now, I want you all to also study the weaknesses and the tender spots, the frailties that your man has. And those should be kept so confidential, so private. But you are the one that can love him through that and build him up and encourage him. Sometimes our men can be the CEO of a company, have important roles out in the workplace, and yet have insecurities. And we are that safe place. We are that place to encourage, to build up, to listen well, to fully listen to what's going on in their life and in their heart. Something that we can do is to ask our husband before he goes to work, or if you're going out the door before him, you can ask him at an appointed time that works for your life and your schedule. Honey, what can I do to lighten your load? What are things on your to-do list around the house or errands that you need to have done? What can I do to help? You can also teach this to your children. Ask Dad what you can do for him today. You're teaching really ourselves. We're teaching our children to think beyond the selfish tendencies that we all are inclined to have. Elizabeth George, in her book that I just showed you, A Woman After God's Own Heart, said this phrase that really has stuck with me and helped me a lot. It's to respond to your husband's ideas, his requests. Yes, dear, you can choose your own manner that you would like, your own wording, but that has been good for me. Yes, dear. Honey, I'm thinking about moving to Hawaii. Yes, dear. Instead of our natural tendencies, which can vary in the room. Some of us want to argue. Some of us want to have all the details. Some of us want to be stubborn and say no. Hey, what do you want to do? Like, what about having this for dinner? Yes, dear. Do you see? Having a kind response to him, a supportive response. If he's unkind, the Bible says a soft answer turneth away wrath. Would you like for me to sing that one? Okay. Okay, thank you, I will. A soft answer turneth away wrath, away wrath, away wrath. Wait, what's the next part? But a fool. Okay, just that part then you need to know. A soft answer turneth away wrath. And did you know that verse is really talking about our hearts? Our soft response turns away our anger. Next, let us talk about respect towards our kids. This will be the last segment that we do this evening. And then next week, we're going to talk about siblings and children respecting their parents. But tonight, this is a brutal one. I hope that each of us have our eyes open towards things that we may not even realize we do that provoke our kids to wrath. We are part of it. Again, they own it, right? They own when they are disrespectful. We still need to deal with that. But we can be contributing towards this kind of tone in their heart, and that builds up. So we know, Ephesians 6, it says, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but, okay, so it's saying put off what? Provoking, right? You're right. It is always out of that, isn't it? Put off provoking and put on what? Let's see. Fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. I forgot to write that down. Ephesians, anybody know what it is? I say it all the time. 8, I think. Tell us, Brittany, when you get it.
Okay.
So, nurture and admonition. Nurturing, loving. Is it 8? Patiently working with and guiding our kids. It's not?
I think it's
6:4. 6:4. Ephesians 6:4. Thank you. So what we want to do is know our children. Just like we want to study our husbands, we want to do the same thing with our kids. Know how they think, know their strengths, their weaknesses, things that are their hot buttons. We want to really understand things that are special to them, their skill set, interests that they have. Study them and know them. And then we want to also know the differences between our different kids. Not to compare at all. The opposite is true. To teach them how to build into each other's lives. And know how they make your family a blessing. Each person in your family adds something to the family dynamics. And know what those are. That should be the kind of stuff that is conversation that just takes place in your home. And you know what will be happening? When one of your kids talks about the other one, they will use the words that you've been using in your home to describe them. They'll say, oh, she's funny. She's so sweet. You know, she's very thoughtful. She has initiative, because that's how you've been talking about your kids in the home. And they'll also say that about your spouse because you've taught them the things about your spouse. Let that be part of the words we use to build each other up in our homes. So, an idea is individual dates with your children, where you take the time not to be the one talking the whole time, but the one who asks some questions and listens fully to their heart. It could be also sitting on their bed at night and just rubbing their back and listening, or saying nothing. There have been times when I have felt distant, particularly from a couple of our kids, but this one situation was with one of our sons, and I felt distance from them. And I think that's important for all of us as moms to be thinking, do I have the heart of my child? All the time be thinking that. And there will be times when there's a little distance, and we need to be prayerful. Lord, what can I do to have the heart of my child? Not be like hovering over them, not be, why don't you talk to me? Why don't you talk to me? Why don't you talk to me? That's not effective. But prayerful, Lord, show me how to reach that child. Show me how that child's made. What do they need from me? See, we can't go wrong when we ask God. He promises to give us wisdom abundantly when we ask of him. And just ask him, like, show me, give me an idea of that. So this one particular son, I just felt like he didn't talk. He wasn't real communicative. And so we got a swing outside that kind of swung by the water. And this was when he was in elementary school. And we called it the Daniel swing. Now, I'm not going to tell you which child it was or anything. I'm just not, because wait. But we called it the Daniel swing. And it was because, I mean, only I knew why we called it that, but you know, I'm sure I told him something like, it's the Daniel swing because I love time with you, something like that. But it was to be intentional with sitting with him and just swinging and being okay with silence, being okay with it being quiet. Okay, but then as he got older, there was another time that I felt like I don't have his heart right now. And the Lord just said, just go to his room at night and just rub his back. Physical affection was important to him. And I just rub his back and think of 400 things that I want to ask him. I'd be like, I want to, okay, now I'm going to ask. Do you understand? Because I wanted only to speak if God said it's time to talk. But he is saying, let it be quiet right now. Just be present. And then, you know, over time, we would talk at night. When the lights were off, he would just open up about things. So be patient with what God's doing with the dynamics in your family, but ask the Lord for guidance of how to reach them. For them to open up in ways that we feel like we communicate. Shouldn't everybody communicate like us, right? So I'm just going to run through some ways that we provoke our kids. Ready? There's a ton more than this, but I'm sure there'll be at least one in here that applies to you, or at least 20 that apply to me. Okay, so being unreasonable with our expectations. Maybe you expect them to make straight A's in school, and they simply have trouble with math. And a B would be phenomenal for them. That's part of studying your child. Or you say, I want the whole house clean before I get home. And you get home and it's not. But it's unreasonable because you've never shown them what cleaning the house really means. Do you understand? So sometimes it's because we get upset that they haven't done what our expectation was, but we haven't properly taught them. Our punishment is harsh. And it's unreasonable. Like maybe you told them they can't text after 9 p.m. and it was 9:05, and you said you can't have a phone for 2 years. That's kind of harsh, would you say? So I did extreme. But even if, you know what I mean, like we do that where it doesn't match what was wrong. We must remember we're training the heart. We want them, if they disobey, as they get older, we don't need to reason with our little one. They need to obey, right? As they get older, we want them to understand there are rules in our house. You disobeyed. That means that you're not trustworthy. You're not trustworthy yet. That's a very important quality in life. So we have conversations with them like that. And you can even ask them sometimes. So you disobeyed, you came home late, you did this, you did that, whatever it was. You came home late, which shows that you're not fully trustworthy right now. Of course, we want to make sure we fully listen to the matter. Maybe there was an accident, okay, that got them home late. We want to give them a chance to listen. That provokes our kids too when we rush to decisions and we don't fully hear out the matter. There's a verse in Proverbs about that. Do y'all know what it is? It's something like, it is good to fully hear out the matter. So we want to hear out the matter and then help them understand the character. You know, when I give you keys to a car, I want to give it to you and I 100% know you're trustworthy. Without a doubt. Teach your kids things like this. When they're learning to go out on their own, you know, like you should be telling them before that happens. But if 10 o'clock is a deadline, you be home way before then. Just to show that you're not trying to go right up to the final minute. Just be home when the movie's over. Or call and say, there's a group of people going to this, do this afterwards. May I go? And accept whatever answer we give. Okay? Anyway, all right, back to these things. Hurtful words or name calling. Like if your child is a little bit slower with running, it would be so hurtful, scarring to call him turtle. And I think sometimes we think things like that are funny and we allow siblings to do things like that, and it's not funny. There should be no place for that. No name calling, no harsh, hurtful words like that. What about when we talk to other people about our kids? That's hurtful. Okay? If we're talking to our kids, to other people, about our kids, there are ways that it's appropriate. When Kelsey had her head injury, there was a very small group of people who I would share with so that I wasn't alone. I would share with them fully what was happening. And it could be embarrassing to her, but they weren't taking it like that. They were my support system who loved her and prayed for her. Does that make sense? I wasn't making fun of her. I was saying these are the things happening in our home. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It's very frightening. They didn't go away thinking worse of my child or ill of my child or ill of me. And that's something to think about. If you're belittling your child, you're talking ill of him and you're shaping the way other people feel about your child. Okay, so there's a difference though. Do you get that? The difference when I was talking about her, it wasn't to hurt her. It was for support for me in that. Talking about them. Another way that we do that is we go, I just can't believe he does stupid things like that. Like, we're talking about our kids? They should never hear stuff like that being said about them. Or the way we correct them in the store, like, get over here. What we're saying in that is my children are driving me crazy. Okay, there's truth to that sometimes, right? But we do not need to communicate that like that. That's rude. What we want to do is say, okay, well, that's how I feel at the store. So before you go to the store next time, teach your children what you expect at the store. All right? Sometimes you have to leave the cart, take them in the car, and say, you know what, you were being disrespectful in the store. I expect you to stay with me. And you're not going to scream. You're not going to say, can I have it, can I have it, can I have it? No. You train at home. And then in the store, you should be able to be very respectful to your kids, and they should be respectful. Don't embarrass them. Swiftly move them to the bathroom to deal with them, to the car, deal with them, so that they know the right behavior for them. Sarcasm, comparing, freaking out over little things that make the child feel like this all the time. Ah! You know, if you spill something and they think, mom's going to go crazy over that. We've talked about this part before in a previous week, but we should handle things calmly so because that can provoke them to anger too. It's like, you get mad at everything. I don't know if you're going to be high or low or this or that, even if they don't have those words to communicate those thoughts. If they don't know who you are and which way, you're creating a tone that they walk on eggshells in your home. And that's something to take a good look at. We want to be consistent and calm and Christ-like. What about controlling? Micromanaging? Our emotions not in check. Being hypocritical. We say one thing, we do another. Or our standards fluctuate. And we change things. We say, you can go to the movies. And then 5 minutes before we say, you cannot go. You can't go to the movies because you were mean to your sister. Or you didn't do the dishes, so you can't do it. Now, I'm not saying there are times that you have to have consequences and change the things. But if you are known within the context of your home that the rules keep changing and they don't know what you're going to be, that is exhausting to the kids and provokes them to wrath. Now, one more thing, well, two more. When we don't listen to their input as they get older, they should be able to talk with us respectfully and give input. You guys, I've learned so much from my kids as they've grown. They've taught me areas that I needed to stretch and change and grow and blind spots. And I'm very thankful because they've done it in a respectful tone. We need to give place for that. Teach them how to communicate with us. All right? You can say, I welcome your input, but only, she's so cute, but only when you're doing it kindly. And also, whatever you share, you need to be willing to accept the answer that we give. So the last one I want to talk about is teaching our kids as they grow up to make an appeal. It's very important that they have a way to communicate with us when they feel like we have said no on something, and they have no way to bring it up to share their thoughts with us. I think it's important that we allow them to make an appeal. Okay, so I'm going to give you one of the most outstanding ones that happened in our home. This is another one with that same child, the oldest child that we have. We were homeschooling, and he likes, at this point he was riding motocross. And he'd already had an accident, and on the thing where he jumped a ramp, they were doing a race, like a real race, and he went over one of the, what are those called, jumps on a course, and fell, and then the next motorcycle went over it and rolled over his back. So, that's kind of scary when that kind of stuff happens and you see the tire marks on the back of him. And we had our other son also had a motocross injury where he was life flighted because of an injury with his leg. So you understand why I was a little bit concerned about this, right? Yes? And you understand where this came from about what you saw the other day? So at this time I was traveling with my home business. I did Creative Memories, a scrapbooking company, and had consultants on my team all over the country. So I was traveling and speaking to their groups for different things. So my kids knew some of my talks, and they were part of helping with the business. I tried to use it to help them with people skills and business skills and social skills and all this stuff, to be intentional about using it. Well, he knew that one of my talks was face your fears head on. So I said, no more motocross. And he's like, but you say, face your fears head on. And I was like, shut up. That's an ugly thing to say, but, I was just kidding when I said, I was like, but not here. No. And you guys, because I spent a lot of time praying about it, I was like, Lord, I am scared. I don't know about this. This doesn't seem real smart to me to do it. But, my husband was all for it. But I was one of these times when I was like, I'm putting my foot down. No. And anyway, I gave him no place to make an appeal. He got so riled up one day. We were driving in our 15-passenger van. He was on the back 13th row back, you understand? And he was out of character where he was being very rude. And I pulled the van over and I said, "Get out. Bye, Felicia." That was before I knew about Felicia. And I'm joking about it, but you can imagine how intense. I don't even know, is that a bad thing? Okay. I just say it because y'all say it. But I put him out on Starrett Road, and I said, "Get out of the the van." Now, he got out, and I was like, thinking, I got to go back and pick him up, but how do I do this? It's kind of embarrassing. I got to eat humble pie, you know. And so the next subdivision I passed, I turned around, came back. Have y'all ever done anything like that? He needed to be set straight. But what he was saying to me was, there is no place for me to voice anything. He was angry. So I picked him up and we drove home. This is what the rest of the kids' eyes looked like in the car. Mom, you gotta go get him. So when we got back to the house, I spent some more time just saying, Lord, what do I do? What do I do? So I went up to his room and I told him that I was, sorry about that. And I said, John, and I just talked with him, teenager to mom. At this point, he's 16 at this particular moment. And I said, I really don't like that this is I don't like it, but I realize that you want to make an appeal. So talk to me. And so he did. He told me the reasons why. He said, Mom, it's something that I love doing. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun family thing. He went on and listed a bunch of things. And he said, and really with me homeschooling all day, he said, my schoolwork, I just make it last all day and all night. He goes, this would give me something to be able to work towards and then be able to do. Does that make sense? Like go do it on his own. Like not the racing part of it on his own, but the practicing at a track. And so what we did that night was I said, let's do this, John. I will agree to pray about it, and you agree to pray about it. Let's both be willing for God to change our hearts. He's going to change yours. Oh, I didn't say that. But I said, let's both be willing, and I meant it, because it would take God changing my heart. So let's both be willing for God to change our hearts, and then let's come back together and see which way it went. And we did. We prayed about it. Guess whose heart God changed? Me. So what we did was I went to him and I said, John, God softened my heart about this. You can take your your motorcycle, and you can go practice every Wednesday at this place. And you will be entrusted with that. And what do you think that did in the dynamics of our home? Now, everything was restored before that point. You can't let things go on when people aren't right with each other. The Bible says, don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. If your child's angry or you're angry, we must deal with it. We can't demand the other person get right with you, but we can get right with God and towards the other person. Does that make sense? But what that did, I think, more than anything, is that showed firsthand my son the power of prayer and the power of God working in his mom's heart. Isn't that what we want? It wasn't a embarrassing thing that he changed my heart. It was a good thing because that showed Christ alive and working in me. There might be things like that happen within your home as your children grow up. Teach them about making an appeal, how to do it respectfully, and how to be willing to accept whatever answer is the final answer. They can say what they want, but they are willing to accept where you do it. Let your children be heard. So tonight we talked about respect towards our spouse. We also talked about respect towards our children and how we can provoke them to wrath. That's something we all can continuously just be aware of and say, Lord, what part am I playing in distance or friction between anyone in our home? Reveal that to me and help me to make it right and restore the tone in our home, but restore the love between family members there. One final thing to say. Some of us need this. I know I did. We need to lighten up. We take ourselves too seriously. We may be coming from a perfectionist home that we were brought up in. We may struggle with perfectionism ourselves. And we need to let go of some things. Some things are important to are important to not let go of a standard, but there's a lot of things that we're making a big deal about that are not important. When God began, I went through a little bit of depression years ago with our third child when he was born. And that was the time that I look back on and I think God used that time frame for me to look at a lot of things I was doing to help me lighten up. And this is a really ridiculous thing, but you might be here at this example. Vacuum cleaner lines on the carpet, that may work and fine. But if you have that where it's perfect and then the kids get in trouble for being on the carpet, something to consider. Because if you want every room to be welcoming, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Do y'all understand that? It's if it goes hand in hand with your children think we can't use that space. Because there's a chance that same standard is in many things going on. It's something for you to take a look at. But what I did was I took a look at my silverware drawer. I'm telling you, this is ridiculous. And you know how you can have all your forks stacked perfectly, right? Well, what are we going to do then every time somebody messes it up? They get in trouble. What are we doing to our kids? People over things, right? But anyway, like I said, just examine what the things are in your own home. But what I did to help me was I went like this, and I just, we have like this much space for each utensil. So to stay neatly on top of each other is a little bit difficult, right? So we have like that much for spoons and knives. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I just went like that, and I was like, today is the day I'm letting go of that being my standard. Do you understand? So are there areas to lighten up as far as perfectionism? And then what about you laughing in your home? Maybe lighten up means your personality being too tense in there, and your children feel it. Your children feel like, so I put on my calendar a long time ago, on my to-do list, y'all, this is crazy. I put on my to-do list, laugh. And I also put jump on the trampoline with the kids. What do you need to do to get into the hearts of each of your children, to love them where they are, to lighten up that tone in your home and make your home be a respectful place and a peaceful home? Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for tonight, and thank you for each of the ladies here and those that are listening to the recording. And may you bless them, and Lord, would you just reveal to them one area of something they can do to have respect towards their spouse and respect towards their children. May we have the hearts of each of our kids. Lord, may we love you. We love you, Jesus. Amen. All right, next week we're going to talk about the other respect going on between kids and actually with people outside your home too. In other words, everybody.